Hi everyone, my presentation is about GMOs, which are genetically modified organisms. So what are GMOs? GMOs are basically the direct human alteration of an organism's DNA in a laboratory setting. So it's a little different from breeding or cross-pollination because those two do not involve a organism's DNA and they don't involve a laboratory setting. So these are basically more towards the natural selection, which is a synthetic process. And basically, GMOs are created by taking a piece of DNA from one organism, which has the specific trait, and inserting it into another organism. And there are foreign genes. The foreign genes are taken from bacteria, viruses, insects, animals, or even humans. And they're also called transgenic organisms because they have pieces of DNA from other organisms. So this is a visual representation of which foods has a higher percentage of DNA yield. So as you can see, 94% of soybeans, 92% of corn, 95% of sugar beets, 90% of canola, and 94% of cotton are all genetically modified in the US. So these are the major products which we have to watch out for. This is also another representation of which foods have a high risk versus a low risk. So alfalfa, canola, corn, cotton, papaya, soy, sugar beet, yellow sugar squash, zucchini, animal products. We have to watch out for those because those have a higher risk of being genetically modified. And lentils, spinach, tomatoes, sesame seeds, and avocados have a low risk. And there are also some processed foods which contain these parts which are used to make other foods, example chips and stuff like that, which we also have to watch out for, but it's pretty hard to distinguish these and identify these. But the most harmful and the most identifiable is animal products. So animal products are a major yield of GMOs, and they're mostly eggs, milk, meat, honey, and seafood, which have a higher percentage, which we have to watch out for. So how are GMOs produced? So what happens is we take the piece of DNA from the bacteria, which has the specific trait. They basically extract it by cutting out the piece of DNA. And they clone the DNA, and they transform it in a cell tissue, which happens in like a laboratory setting. And after that, they grow it out in like a lab or a farm. So there are actually many pros and cons and arguments can be made to each side, but I'm more involved and leaning towards the cons, which I'll explain later. But there are some benefits of GMOs, which are it's a better yield. So you can produce more crops, and fruits and vegetables last longer, so they don't rot away quickly, because if they insert the piece of DNA from other organisms which is resistant to that, and they go bigger and faster, and there are less harmful pesticides, but this is actually, I'll explain it in the next slide. There are a lot of cons and health risks which a lot of people don't know about and are ignorant towards. So there's actually a lot of evidence, for example, through these pictures that shows if only GMOs eating mouse, which you can see the progression of the health risks, and the mortality rate will be higher, the slowed growth rate, growth defects, infertility. This is all related to animals, but it's pretty relatable to humans too, because we almost have a genetic resemblance. Plus, the harmful pesticides which are used to make these are becoming more resistant, which is explained in the next slide. And GMOs were approximately introduced around 1904. So basically, you can see 1994. So you can see the progression that after the introduction of GMOs, there's a higher risk of all these diseases and mortality rates. So after the introduction of GMOs, there's a higher percentage of chronic constipation reflexes, Crohn's disease, and diabetes. So we have to watch out for those. And the higher percentage of GMO yield in these crops can also be related to the higher allergies which are reported in hospitals. Evidence has also proved that this is the stomach lining of a non-GMO and this is the stomach lining of a GMO. And as you can see, they're obviously bigger. And if you see this graph, these two are related because after the introduction of GMOs, the infection and diseases and deaths due to intestinal infection is higher, which it correlates with this data because GMOs were introduced around 1994. And as you can see, this is also another graph which relates to cancer, which also improves our data. There are a lot of environmental risks because the GMOs and plants are becoming resistant to the pesticides that we use on them, and arguments can be made to each side. So more harmful pesticides are becoming more resistant, so we have to use more stronger pesticides which are involved in our food system, which is harmful for us. And these have many environmental risks because they contaminate streams, rivers, and etc. Now, why is this important? Because the USA is the largest producer of GMO crops, but yet we don't have clear and defined laws. Because 30 other countries, which are all developed countries, including Australia, Japan, and Great Britain, have restrictions or banned on GMOs. And because they're not proven safe, we don't know the long-term effects. But as we can see, US and we don't have a definitive GMO labeling law, which is pretty concerning. So what can we do in order to combat this? We can always read the labels, and what you have to watch out for is these two labels, which are USDA organic and non-GMO product verified. These are verified by the government, and which is very useful because if we look for these products, we're pretty much confirmed that they don't have any kind of GMOs in them. And you can support farms, and if by supporting farms, you can also increase your health benefits, and it also improves the economy. And you can avoid purchasing products like these, like processed soy, corn, canola, vegetable oils. You can spread awareness, and you can go online to join the movement and sign the petition. Thank you.